Hello, 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 and welcome to my channel. It has been a hot minute since I've been back on here, and for that I am very sorry. Literally I was about to film my very next video, and then I got sick, and my voice, I could not stand to listen to it for like a solid 2 weeks. But we are back now, we are back in business, and the weather is getting colder, the leaves are falling off the trees. It's time for my least favorite season of running, but also kind of sometimes my favorite season of running, which is winter running and winter training. So today I wanted to give you some winter running tips, and I have divided these into the 3 S's of winter running. Safety, sanity, and success. And those are in order of how important they are. Obviously, safety is most important. You preserve your sanity when you can, and obviously you want to succeed in every single season of training. So I'm going to go over some tips and tricks that I have for winter running as someone who has been through so many seasons of upstate New York winter running, and I live in a rural area. We don't have sidewalks, so a lot of times I am forced inside in those winter months. But even if you are outside, it can get bleak, it can get boring. So I'm going to share some tips and tricks to help you out. So let's get right into it. So my first S of winter running is safety. This is obviously the #1 priority. And there's some great products that you can get to help combat some of the safety concerns that often come up when we're talking about running in the winter. The first safety concern that's really prominent when you're talking about running in the winter is it gets dark. It stays dark late and gets dark early, so a lot of times it's a struggle to have enough daylight to get those runs in. So I'm going to show you some of my favorite products for running when it's dark out. The first is light up hats. Press the button and it lights up, so you can wear that. This one's actually pretty bright too. You can wear something like this to make sure you can be seen. Also wearing bright colors, bright yellow, bright orange, neon colors. And then also, I haven't used this yet because I just got it, but I'm so excited about it. It is this little light vest. It has a fluorescent strip, and when you turn it on, it lights up so many different color options. And I bought it like to train for club, but I am so excited like just to use it literally whenever I get the chance because like it's so awesome. Plus it uses a USB-C, so that's pretty great. And there's lots of other products. I know there's like light up shoelaces that you can thread into your laces. They have little clip-ons that just go like on your sports bra. Anything you can do to be light, be seen. And if you get stuck out there and it's getting dark and you weren't expecting it, I try to always at least bring like a little flashlight or something, so I always know I have something. But worst comes to worst, make sure you're at least turning on your phone flashlight when dusk starts to fall, because cars will not see you. I cannot tell you how many close calls I've had, especially in the early days before I was like trying to not get run over. But that is super important. And the second aspect of safety when you're winter running is the cold, because it is cold. And it's also windy, and the wind and the cold will absolutely do a number on your lungs. So my favorite thing to do for that, to help my lungs stay intact, is wear some type of gaiter. There's 2 different types that you can kind of look at and see which one's best for you. The first one, and this is the one I prefer, I think this was like $5 on Amazon, like these are not expensive, is just the kind that goes right like this, and you can put it over your ears or under your ears. I usually put mine under my ears, but it just kind of covers this area. I think skiers also wear these a lot, and this will just help warm the air before it goes into your lungs, because the cold air will absolutely do a number on your lungs. And I like this one because if you don't want to use it anymore, you can tie it up as a little headband. And then this other one, this was probably like $10 on Amazon. None of this stuff was really very expensive. This one's for when it's super duper cold out, and it covers your whole face. And I also like this one because that makes sure the back of your neck's covered, which helps you, you know, regulate your internal temperature. And I kind of look terrifying wearing it, but, you know, it's worth it for the safety, you know. So those are like the two main types, and I definitely recommend getting one, especially if you're going to be running in like below freezing temperatures, because that's when your lungs really start to have a number taken out on them by the cold weather. And also, it's really important to know your limits, know when you need to stay inside, know when it's just not the right day to run outside. And for me, that's a lot of the time, mainly a safety thing, because like I said, where I live, there aren't sidewalks. So if it's too cold or if it's too windy, lots of people don't think about this, make sure it's not too windy, because like I said, that will rip into your lungs. And also, if there's low visibility, if there's a snowstorm, or if it's foggy, like, you want to stay inside. And obviously, when we think of staying inside, we think of treadmill running, or as most runners would like to say, treadmill running. I feel you there. I also do not love treadmill running. I kind of despise it, actually. But if you don't have a treadmill, it's a great investment as a runner, so you can try to keep your winter mileage as consistent as possible. You can get some from really cheap on Facebook Marketplace. I'm pretty sure the first one I had, we got for like free off of Facebook Marketplace. Then eventually we upgraded to the Peloton tread, but that's really not necessary, and it's just like a good add-on to have. And that segues us into the second S, which is sanity, which is hard to maintain when you are treadmill running. Treadmill running, it just drains you, but there are some things that I've found that really help you stay motivated and stay sane when you're treadmill running. And the first one is, if you have like an iPad or a laptop, you can kind of prop it up on your treadmill, and on YouTube you can find a bunch of different treadmill run videos where it'll just be like, if you've seen Peloton and you've seen like their live run, like free run features where they have like all the scenic little destinations and stuff, YouTube has so many of those literally for free, which is amazing. And I used to love those before I had my Peloton treadmill, when I was just kind of raw dogging it and running on a old creaky treadmill. I forget how much that treadmill sucked sometimes, and then I remember when I get back on it. You want to, if you have any amount of like choice in like getting a bit of a nicer treadmill, just turning the treadmill on will tell you everything you need to know about the treadmill, because some belts are just old and some treadmills you can't calibrate, so the belts just feel sandy, and that's what it is. Literally, it sounds like you're like on sand every time you take a step on that treadmill, and it actually is maddening. But yeah. So you can definitely do that, or you can just do my favorite thing and watch Grey's Anatomy while you're on the treadmill. That's how I get my long runs done in the winter. I'm just like, okay, episode of Grey's Anatomy, all my sanity is dependent on you. Is my camera crooked? I feel like my camera's crooked right now. You know, it's fine. It's fine. It's straight enough. The second sanity tip is doing fartlek runs to make boring scenery more interesting. Even when I do run outside in the winter, I find it difficult because everything's just dead. Everything looks boring. There's nothing visually interesting. So some ways I get around that are listening to podcasts, but also doing fartleks. There's not a lot to go off of if it's the winter time a lot of times, but things like if you see a car, you do a certain interval, or if you see a mailbox, you do a certain interval. It really depends on where you live and like what features you have. But I like to do some where like you sprint up hills and then you shuffle jog and then you sprint up hills, and then if you see a mailbox, you sprint to the mailbox, like stuff like that. It really is dependent on where you live, but you can create a really great just like base training circuit to help you to like just keep it a little more mentally stimulating. And another thing you can do to keep things a little more mentally stimulating is, if it is safe to do so in your area and if you have the proper tools and equipment to safely do so, running at sunrise or sunset. Winter sunrises and sunsets are literally 10 times prettier than any other sunrise and sunset. I'm going to try to put up some pictures here of like when I'm running and I see a really pretty sunrise or sunset. It's usually in the winter, and I'll put some pictures up. It's amazing, and I highly recommend because it just makes it so much more visually interesting and so much more motivating. Also, depending on where you live, this may or may not ever happen, but try to run when it's sunny out, especially for long runs, because it like mentally just helps. Even if everything's dead, if it's sunny, you know, every little bit helps. So those are some tips that should help you hopefully stay sane. And now we'll get to the final one, which is success. And this is just kind of general tips. Some of them tie into safety, some tie into sanity. Most of them tie a little bit into both, and some of them are just kind of, you know, in their own little category. So I just categorize them all here. The first one is hydrate more than you feel is needed. You still want to be intaking those electrolytes, maybe not quite as much as in the summer when it's really hot, but still intaking those electrolytes, and you definitely want to hydrate more with just plain water than you feel is needed, because you don't feel like you're like getting thirsty the same way in the winter. Like I could run a 10-mile run in the winter and like not even feel thirsty, but like you still have to drink water because otherwise you're gonna shrivel up and become raisin human. So it's really, really important to make sure you are hydrating enough. Sometimes in the winter months I will actually track my water intake. I don't always do this just because like mentally I don't have like the amount of bandwidth to like remember to do it all the time, but sometimes in the winter I will try because I know that I am not getting enough proper hydration. Another thing is to warm your muscles up slowly after running. And this is probably the hardest one because the second I get back from a run when it's cold outside, the first thing I want to do is hop in the shower and take a hot ass shower. But that's actually not good for your muscles because like a really quick change can make your muscles kind of hard and they don't quite know how to react. I'm not a scientist. This is like the best way I can think of to explain it. And it can get you at higher risk of injuries is what scientists are increasingly finding. That's the same reason why they used to recommend ice baths like so much. Now they don't recommend them as much because they found that the sudden rapid cooling or heating of your muscles can be negative in some scenarios. So just be sparing with it. I try to like wait at least like 10 or 15 minutes before I get in the shower. And also I just feel like I feel a little more rejuvenated afterwards if I don't get right in the shower. Whereas if I get right out of the cold, get right in the shower, I feel like then I just need to take a nap, to be honest. And then dress for the weather. This also plays into safety. Don't go out on a run on a 10-degree day wearing shorts. I'm not going to give like a super specific baseline. There's things you can find online, but I don't want to say any one thing just because different temperatures feel different for different people. Actually, on my Garmin, I have a little widget that will tell me if it's shorts weather. Right now it's not, it's 44 degrees. But it feels different for everybody, so I'm not going to give like blanket advice about what to wear at what temperature, but just don't be stupid. Use common sense. I feel like that's what a lot of the stuff on this list is. Don't go running in the dark without a flashlight. Don't run in shorts when it's 10 degrees outside. Use common sense. But sometimes I feel like the more I get into running, the more that common sense is no longer common to me. Because most people would say common sense is don't run a marathon, but so many of us do. But moving on, the last tip is to wear warm socks. Especially after a snowstorm when the ground is wet, you want to be wearing warm socks because I love my little thin socks under my shoes. However, when it's cold out, you literally like will get to the point where you can't even feel your feet, which sounds great. And sometimes I like it when it's like mile 12 of a 15-mile long run. I like that I can't feel my feet, but it's really not great. You really want to keep all your toes attached. So it's really important to, at the very least, especially if you're wearing carbon fibers or something really light, you are wearing some nice warm socks underneath to keep your feet intact, especially when it is wet outside. And with that, that is all of my tips. I hope everyone stays safe, sane, and is successful with their winter training this year. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!